All right, good morning. Welcome to the first Northbound Training Podcast. My name is Sarah. I will be our host today. And this is Marcus. He is going to be our talent portion. Really, the idea behind this podcast is just a way for you guys to get to know us a little bit better, a way for us to connect with our community. We'll talk about things in the gym, things outside of the gym, maybe get some of our other coaches on here to get some other voices and some other opinions about certain things. But really, this first one, we just wanted to give you a glimpse into who we are, why we started Northbound, and kind of go from there as this podcast continues. So, first things first, we want to talk about why we started Northbound, what the mission of Northbound is, and where we're hoping to see it grow. So I'll hand it over to Marcus. He'll talk about our mission.
Good. I'm also Sarah's husband, in case you aren't aware of that. Really, I guess the best place to start is we established the mission of Northbound as to improve lives through relationship and training. And in making that our mission, one of the big things was trying to set ourselves up for a lens to look through in all of our decision making, whether that's for how we run the company or looking at different ways that we can improve the company, or ultimately like what our purpose is. Really it boils down to establishing relationships with the people that are within our community, and hopefully growing to many relationships within the greater community of our area, and second, trying to give the best opportunity for training our bodies in the most optimal way that we can here through fitness and through our programming and through our coaching, but beyond that, trying to send the right message when it comes to nutrition and sleep and mindset and relationships outside the gym too. So yeah, I don't know if that was the question, but
Yeah, that's
hopefully
great.
that gives a good insight into what the mission is.
Yeah.
If you guys can see him, this is our dog Bigsby too. We'll see if he makes any noise if you're watching along.
Yeah, so that's the mission behind Northbound. Also kind of the mission behind this podcast is, I was talking to Marcus about as my role changes or as the community grows, I want to stay connected as much as I can. And part of being connected is having you guys know our story. So I want to kind of go into that a little bit today. So Marcus, when did you start CrossFit? When did you start coaching? How did that all come about?
Yeah, well, to piggyback on top of that, we opened up Northbound with 33 members, and many of which were people that we've been in a relationship now for some coming up on 10 years. But there are many people that are new over the past couple of years as well, and may not know our story or how Northbound came to be. And so this is kind of a cool way to tell that story and to hopefully communicate it versus trying to have a private conversation with every single new person that comes. But I started CrossFit kind of 2013, a little bit later in 2013, and really I started because my brother had started prior, and I was big into bodybuilding and lifting weights and trying to get as jacked as possible on a very like shallow understanding of fitness at that time. And my brother turned on the TV and saw CrossFit or got connected somehow and said that I should check it out because there was a lot already that I was doing that would fall under the umbrella of CrossFit at the time. And having been an athlete, sort of moving out of organized sports, it was a very easy transition to something that kind of gave me that competitive outlet and brought me back to sort of that team atmosphere. So I started kind of later in 2013. I joined a gym called Allegiance Fitness. We had an affiliate called CrossFit Northern Lights at that time, and as I moved into my first kind of real job out of college, out of Bethel, I worked for a multi-site church called Eagle Brook, doing expansion on their expansion team, working with new buildings and renovations and mobile sites. And at the same time, because I spent so much time at the gym before and after work, I developed some relationship with the coaches there and with the staff, and eventually they said, hey, you should give coaching a go because you're soaking up a lot of the information, you're clearly getting connected with many of the people here, you have a pretty good understanding of what we're looking for. Now at the time, that gym was kind of like the Wild West. There wasn't really any leadership, there wasn't much of a business plan. It was just sort of this huge operation. It was like 24,000 square feet and 15 different staff, and never really made any money, but it was a really cool facility. So I got started coaching early that next year in 2014. Did my first CrossFit Open at that time too, which we have coming up pretty quick here. And then it kind of took off from there. So I started coaching our afternoon classes. We had I believe it was a 5:15 and 6:15, something like that. So I would go in before work at 6 a.m., do our CrossFit class, work out for a little bit after that, go to work for my work day, come back, maybe hit a piece or two prior to coaching, coach, maybe do a little bit more working out after that, and then go back home, usually by like 8:30 at night. So typically I was out of the house at 5:30 and home at about 8:30. I was super single at the time because Sarah and I weren't dating, and just kind of made fitness my passion, and doors started opening up. And then Sarah and I got reconnected at Allegiance in 2015, start of 2015. She asked me out. I said, maybe. No. And we went through the summer kind of developing more of our friendship. And then later on in that fall of 2015 is when we started dating. As we headed into 2016, and you can correct me if my timeline is off here, but having now coached for the better part of 2 years at that time, I had the opportunity to actually take over our affiliate, CrossFit Northern Lights, that was there at Allegiance. So I left my job at Eagle Brook and was ready to take over the affiliate, and one day I showed up to not anybody's knowledge, but the door was locked up, the lease was terminated, and they were liquidating all their assets. And so we were kind of left as to what the next step would be from there. Sarah and I were in a pretty serious relationship, and so she obviously was a very big support at that time. And everything's a little bit of a blur from there, but basically an opportunity opened up at another gym that is still currently down the road. And I worked at this next gym in a part-time coaching role, quickly moving into a full-time coaching role, then moving into a head coach, and then eventually moving into a general manager position over the course of the next 3.5, 4, just over 4 years or so, through the end of 2019. And like I said before, a few of the people from Northbound we've known from Allegiance, from my former employer, and now through Northbound for coming up in the better part of 10 years. And doors continuously kept opening, and when eventually I was let go at the end of that fall, we just sort of took a breath for a little bit and decided whatever the next step was. But you can talk about that if you want to.
Yeah.
Or you can correct any part of my story that I was.
No, you got it mostly right. When Allegiance closed, Marcus and I and a number of other people kind of went over to this other gym where Marcus started coaching. That's also where I started coaching as well, just because we were at the gym so much. I kind of took over that coaching role for a couple people as well. And then, fall of 2019, Marcus was a little bit unexpectedly let go the same day that we had our first ultrasound with our son Ronnie. So it was a little bit more emotional for me than it was for Marcus. I think that was kind of the start of the dream of owning our own gym. I didn't know it at the time because, like I said, I was pretty hormonal and didn't really see super clearly, but I think that was kind of the first step of Northbound, and something that Marcus saw pretty clearly from that day.
Yeah, that was where the door kind of swung open for us. It was never really my intent to own a gym, but I absolutely loved coaching, obviously being there every day and kind of making that our community that we wanted to develop our marriage in, to raise kids in, to have that type of environment with people that really are passionate about their fitness, but also passionate about each other and wanted to continue that on. So fall at the end of 2019, Sarah's pregnant with Ronnie. We actually just closed on our first house that week as well. So that was kind of another layer that was pretty chaotic. And then we moved into the end of 2019, landed on the name Northbound. I had been doing some kind of word association with North just because I've always liked the idea of having a directional tie, of kind of having the logo somewhat established of arrows moving up that formed a tree, and just needed the right kind of association with that. And eventually one night, in the middle of the night, I turned over and whacked Sarah and said, Northbound, that'll be the name. And so got the name. Already had established what we wanted our mission and our core values to be, and then it's just the rest of figuring everything else out. So went into beginning of 2020, and if some of you remember, it was a bit of a we don't know what's going to happen type time. There was kind of some murmurings of this COVID stuff and the world shutting down and all that kind of stuff. Anyways, we kept going on. Built up a little bit of a following of people that we had been in communication with, and signed a lease on March 3rd, which is Sarah's birthday of 2020. And if you remember back to that time, that was the week that the world actually kind of shut down. And so by the end of that week, on March 10th, which is my dad's birthday, our lease was 100% dissolved, and we were basically back to square one. And that lease originally was up actually right down the street from where we lived at the time, right off of 96 and 35E. So a little bit further north of where we were at. And it would have been a 3,000 square foot space, which is about 1,000 square feet smaller than what we have now. That's now currently a salon. Actually, it's been vacant since probably about 6 months ago or so when they built it out and put a salon in there. Anyways, we were left back to square one, and at the same time the world was shut down, and we were kind of sitting at home with not a lot to do other than just sort of dream up what we wanted the next chapter of life to look like. Beginning of May rolled around, and Ronnie joined us on May 3rd of 2020. And
you got an extended paternity leave.
I got an extended paternity leave because of the COVID stimulus or extra package that was in there. So my unemployment had actually run out at that time, and I think I went actually like a week without it. And then at that exact same time, the extension kicked in, and I got a bonus because I was so good at being unemployed at that time.
But it was good because we used that towards
that basically became the whole
business.
upfront investment with the help and support of many close people in our lives too. That made Northbound a reality. At right around Ronnie's birthday is when I started looking at this facility that we're currently in. We ended up signing a lease by the end of May, and had a projected start date of somewhere like September of that fall of 2020. That got pushed back a little bit because the current tenant, who is actually is still, but was in this space at the time, was a glass blowing manufacturer who's the son of the owner of this building. They were moving out, they bought their own facility, and they operate somewhere in, I think, Spring Lake Park. So if you can imagine with a glass blowing facility, there was a lot of kilns and water stuff and broken pieces of glass and everything that they needed to get out of here before we could begin our build out. So we got pushed back until November 1st of 2020, which is when we opened up with our flooring down, our turf down, I think maybe one of each weight of kettlebells, like
A couple
of dumbbells. No, I think it was just literally one rower.
A couple barbells.
A couple barbells, at least a 35.
No
and 45.
pull-up bars.
No rig.
A yoke, maybe.
Some plyo boxes.
Yeah.
Two
Basically
two
what
yokes,
was in our garage.
2 yokes, so we had 2 places to squat. And sandbags.
But
rack
with
bags,
all of our equipment ordered.
with all of our
It was
equipment
just
ordered. Yep.
back ordered
Yep.
because of everyone who was
Yep.
making a garage
So we
gym.
knew, yep, so we when we got the final date of when Northbound was coming, we made the order of all of our stuff, which I think was September, October of 2020. The lead time on that was, I believe, 4 months, 4 or 5 months, which
We
was a
ended up-
custom order through Rogue,
Yeah.
but we had to wait for all that stuff. So we opened up November 1st with 33 people, very minimal equipment in this space. It was kind of like the, I don't know, the origin story, I guess, of Northbound. And we operated for like 3 weeks of bliss, and then the second shutdown happened because of COVID, so we were closed for 6 weeks. And
Which kind of brought us through the holidays.
Yep, brought us through the holidays, and Sarah and I, it was a very weird time where we had just opened up a business and basically
We're
just
told
had
we
to sit
couldn't
on our hands for
run it.
a long time, yeah. So about 6 weeks, and then we opened up right after the new year is when they let us open back up for sure. So that was kind of more of our original start date, was January of 2021.
Which is about when our equipment also came.
Yep, our equipment came about 3 weeks later. It was like Christmas.
Yeah.
And we got our rig set up pretty quick. We got all of our barbells, our racks, our dumbbells, our other kettlebells. Maybe our machines had showed up a little bit prior to that because that came from concept. So all of a sudden what went from like super minimal, basically a garage of someone's equipment, to almost all of what Northbound has now, with some few pieces added down the road. So yeah, it was a pretty awesome start to 2021, and then we hit the ground running after that. Anything I missed?
No, that was about the timeline. I think when we're doing this podcast, we want our members to know the story. We want new people to know the story as well, but it's great for us to think back on it, because I think in the time, or in the process of this timeline for us, we were both, myself probably more so than Marcus, it was stressful. We didn't really know what was going to happen. It was very unknown, and now looking back on it, it was exactly what it needed to be in order for us to truly understand and nail down what we wanted our business to be about, which is the relationships that we have with the people that are in our doors.
Yeah, for sure, and that was a good way to start and for us to kick things off, because really it made us work a little bit harder as to, okay, training is one piece of the puzzle here, but because we can't deliver the product that we want to deliver because we're limited on what we have, we need to make sure that we're putting the due diligence in to establish the relationships with kind of our core members to start, and really give all that we can with the lack of equipment, because ultimately, hopefully, fitness isn't relying on your equipment. It's just that equipment allows us to do fun things, and sometimes more fun workouts.
Sometimes.
Yeah. And for us too, like a huge part of why we do what we do is because we believe that we've been given a passion for people and passion for fitness, and rely on our faith heavily through that process, because we really were met with the unknown for, in both of our cases, kind of the first time in our lives of a very real challenge of how are we going to go through this, and especially being newlyweds too, how are we going to rely on each other through the process? How are we going to trust that God has a plan, given that everything is somewhat unknown in front of us? I mean, we sat there with owning our first mortgage at its maximal cost and a kid on the way, and no job for me, and a business that hopefully we were going to open up, but we had no idea if it was going to happen or not at the end of 2020. And then the beauty of it, basically 15 months later was we were living kind of a dream that we weren't really sure if it was going to happen. So,
and still are living that dream.
Yeah, for sure. And every day is just a dream. It's perfect every single day. Just kidding. But it really makes you grateful for the opportunity that you have to get to do what we get to do and to be where we're at. So our faith plays a huge part of that. And without that, I think we would have fallen on some rockier times than even what we had experienced. So 2021 hit. At that time, we probably had grown to 40, 50 members. Many of, if not all, are still here unless they've moved. Had a couple coaches. Phil and Andy had helped us out at that time a little bit as well. Matt, Mike Sell started helping us out a little bit, and grew pretty steadily over the course of 2021.
Really all by our members.
Yep, for sure.
Spreading the word, which I think is important, because we have put very little effort into no effort into advertising beyond social media
and this billboard.
But because we're providing that relationship aspect, other people want their friends and family to be a part of it, which I think is cool.
Yep. And went through 2021, went through 2022, kind of steadily growing throughout, and kind of same story for 2023. And a lot of what we've done is trial and error and ebbs and flows, and this worked this year and it didn't work this year, and we can do it better next time. But really trying to establish back to our mission of we try to make every decision within our community either for the purpose of developing greater relationships or for the purpose of improving our training, whether it comes down to buying another Echo bike, which everybody appreciates, to hosting events, to doing different workouts or whatever. We always try to do it with the mindset of what is our mission and how can we express it through the decisions that we make.
So going into 2024, we're going to continue doing that.
Yep, for sure.
This podcast is one way that we're hoping to do that. So improving our relationships with people, but also hopefully giving you guys some knowledge and information that we have or that we've experienced from our past or from our education or from some of our coaches, hopefully getting them involved in this as well, and leveraging some of their knowledge and expertise to improve your lifestyle, your fitness, your nutrition, whatever it might be in or outside of the gym.
Yeah, because we get to own a gym and we get to do this for a living, which is awesome, and we love doing it. But at the same time, we now have 2 kids and go through the battles of sleep deprivation, go through the battles of what to feed our kids, or strep, or the flu, or COVID, or what, you name the sickness that comes through. But we constantly want to try to learn along the way too, and do it better than we did before. So hopefully we can set an example with some of those choices. That's a big part of is even at home why we do what we do and why we set the routines that we set. And I think we want to be able to express that and communicate that a little bit more this year too, to go beyond the walls of just the gym, because I know that obviously we have the perfect workout every single day and the perfect programming and the perfect equipment and all that stuff, but
it's an hour
there's a lot of it's 1 hour of your day, and hopefully it is that best hour, but there's many other choices that we make outside the gym, and hopefully this podcast allows us to give more information, or maybe it's just resonate with other people's struggles too.
Get you thinking about different things.
Yep.
Give you another example or another option to try
Yep.
if you haven't.
But we really want to start with our story, just so that it's a cool way for us to tell it, but set the tone for the podcast moving forward.
So if you've made it this far, thanks for listening. Be on the lookout for more. Like Marcus said, we've got the CrossFit Open coming up, so we'll do something around that as well, just so that you understand why we do the Open, and why it's important to us as a gym, important to us as people. Yeah, thanks for listening.